Welcome everyone. It is day 247 of heroic resistance of Ukraine. This is Natalia Staropravo, and we are starting a series of briefing at Ukraine Media Center. Lviv is getting ready for a heating season. We're getting ready for setting up of mobile warming centers, and that is why I would like to invite Andrii Hodyk, first deputy head of Lviv Oblast Military Administration. Could you please tell us more about Lviv being ready for the winter season? I want to welcome everyone. We know that the enemy every day attacks objects of the critical infrastructure, including energy supply objects, due to the previous attacks, and we know that the heating season is coming soon. It's very important for us to be ready for a potential critical situation when there will be outages of power supply, in particular in our region. It's very important for us to protect infrastructure objects, and it's also important to understand that local authorities, both on the municipal level and regional level, they really need to be ready to provide help to the population of the Lviv region, in particular when there will be a situation without any energy supplies or heat supplies. Together with local self-governance, we are going to set up mobile warming centers for residents, and in an emergency situation, together with the state emergency service, we will have not only permanent but also mobile warming centers. There were proposals from different representatives of local self-governance. We will use social infrastructure objects, and to some extent, they are already ready for this function. And actually here we can talk about several functions they are going to have. This is shelter for people. This is a possibility for people to warm up and access to the internet. And also it will be possible if there is a need to receive first aid. We talk about the verification of different objects, and the proposal is to have 400 warming centers, but this is not the final indicator. It could be bigger, it could be less, it depends. It's not really about the number, it's more about their efficiency and functionality. In light of this, together with local self-governance, and I want to pinpoint once again that it is their duty to make sure that there is everything what is needed there in this warming centers, alternative energy supply. It could be a generator which works on diesel or petrol. It depends on the area and the number of people who are going to use it. For everyone who are in need to have electricity, to have light, to be able to charge their gadgets, their mobile phones, and so on, and also to be aware of what is happening in the country at that moment. Also, we talk about news, and also if there is Starlink, there is access to the internet and a possibility to receive all the information which is needed at that moment. We already mentioned Starlinks, and we already started working together with our international partners and donors or different organizations. It's very important for us to have more Starlink terminals, to make sure that you have sufficient number of them for each and every of our warming centers, to have access to the internet for those people who need this. That is why it's only through concerted efforts it will be possible for us to attain the result we intend to achieve. When we talk about some permanent warming centers and the proposals which we have already received, we have quite a significant area, and it will be possible to house 70,000 citizens from the region. But I also wanted to mention that we can have some changes depending on the situation. For several weeks, we've been working with local authorities, and it's very important for us to make sure that we have freezer energy supplies, food supplies, at least some basic sets of food supplies, water supplies, drinking water. When we talk about the verification on the regional level, after all those proposals which we received, then there will be a commission working on these objects, whether they can be used for this purpose or not, because safety is a priority for us. It's very important that we have a shelter in these buildings. Is it possible to use alternative energy sources in these facilities? Considering the safety aspect. That is why, together with the emergency service and local authorities representatives, we will assess the condition of these facilities and whether they can be used for this goal. Then, together with the law enforcement bodies, we are discussing the algorithm of informing the population whether through a channel this information will be accessible, but by different means. The residents of Lviv will be informed about permanent warming centers which are in the territory and which are very close to our neighborhoods. Thank you. I could also address Yurii Kahitin, head of the main director of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine in Lviv Oblast, to tell us more about such mobile warming centers, because we know that mobile warming centers will be temporary in case there is an emergency. Then, so what are the preconditions for setting up such mobile warming centers? Good morning. As Mr. Hodyk has mentioned, when we talk about permanent warming centers, also if there is an additional need, we will set up additional or mobile warming centers if there is some help to be provided to the population when we talk about charging different devices or warming. It will be very important for us to set up mobile warming centers. What does it imply? This means that we will have a tent, let's go this way. There will be an additional source of energy. We will have some hot tea, and it will be possible for people to warm up, to charge their phones if there is no access to the general grid. And why do we call it a mobile warming center? Because during some period of time, we can relocate it into different places depending on the need. And the main directorate of the State Emergency Service has a sufficient number of tents and autonomous sources of energy, because we have generators for this purpose. That is why we stand ready to help our citizens, our administration for a warming purpose and to help our citizens. When are you going to set up first warming centers in Lviv region, and where exactly are you going to do this? Well, we don't have a concrete schedule at this moment because we don't know where the need will arise, where we will have outages, in which place this is going to happen. That depends. We will consider this option depending on the situation, circumstances, depending on the needs. Together with Lviv Oblast Military Administration, we will take a decision about setting up mobile warming centers. So what about those permanent warming centers? Well, permanent warming centers, as Mr. Hodyk has outlined, we have already designated the number of them and the locations. And do we know when will they be set up? Well, they're almost ready, I guess. So I think it's better to address this question to Mr. Hodyk for him to give an answer. As far as permanent warming centers are concerned, it's very important to understand what they are. These are objects of infrastructure which have their primary function. These could be educational facilities or some other premises which could be used. Right now, they are functioning as usual, and it's important for us to make sure that we have some reserve energy supplies, that everything is which is needed is brought there: food, water supplies, sterling terminals, and let's be honest, I mean, we can use even stoves for that purpose. It's important that we have everything at our disposal in case if there is a need, if there is an urgent need within a very short time frame, it will be possible for us to set up such centers for our citizens to get warm. I wanted to reiterate that this is an extreme measure which could be used because this heating season and this winter is going to be the most difficult one throughout the period of our independence. That is why we really need to get ready for anti-crisis measures to be adopted, and this is something unprecedented for the history of our country. To your journalists, if you have any questions, then introduce yourself. Vitaly Kovalov, First Western. So you talk about 400 permanent warming centers. What about mobile warming centers? Could you give us some rough data? When we talk about mobile warming centers, then we are ready to set up some 50 centers, but the numbers will grow because we will have some support from our administration, from other partners, and we will have more tents coming, more generators coming, so we will have bigger numbers of these centers. And by the end of November, from our international partners, we expect to have some additional 40 tents, special tents, which will be used for mobile warming centers setting up, and also using the funds of the regional budget, we procure some 30 units of heat cannons, which could also be used for warming. Could you tell us more about the support of international partners? Who exactly is ready to help, and what kind of support they're ready to provide? We work very closely with USAID, and they are very constructive as far as different programs are concerned. They help us a lot. Also, we have some Czech partners. We already receive a first series of generators. Then there will be 15 generators coming by the end of November. On general communication with our international partners, we ask everyone, do you help us, and the needs which have been defined and the number of institutions with which we communicate as far as alternative sources of energy are concerned, and the communications supplies. We talk about not dozens but probably even hundreds. There are very many actors with which we interact. You already mentioned Starlink terminals. When are we going to expect them coming, and who's going to provide them? Well, as of now, it's difficult to receive a sufficient number of Starlink terminals for us. I have already addressed social responsible entrepreneurs and other partners to help us with procurement because the efforts which we have already applied, well, it's understood that everything went to the front line to make sure that our military have communication channels. But when we talk about warming centers and critical infrastructure, we don't have enough terminals. We don't know about the influx of Ukrainians coming and leaving. So what about warming centers on our borders? Are they going to be permanent, or these will be mobile warming centers? Yes, you're absolutely right. When we talk about border crossing checkpoints, it's impossible for us to set up permanent warming centers in all of these checkpoints, and I think that in the same way as we did it in February and March together with local authorities, emergency service, and local citizens, we will have some mobile centers set up. So what about Lviv region working generally on alternative energy supplies? What about those recommendations which you give to Lvivites with regard to the cold weather? If there is a question whether Lviv region is ready for a heating season, then I usually answer that yes, we are 100% ready, but considering a peaceful time. Well, the grid is ready, everything is ready, but there are no guarantees that there will be no attacks on our infrastructure. One of such tools is mobile warming centers. Beside that, local self-governments, well, individually using different means, they are getting ready. And the city of Lviv, as all of you know about this program about stoves in each household, all other local authorities, they procure different alternative sources of energy for different objects. So you were quite positive when you talk about Lviv region, but if you talk about Ukraine in general, what do you know about other cities and where does Lviv stand there? Well, I don't think this is a correct thing to be discussing the situation in different regions because I think that we have very many issues to be covered still as far as heating is concerned. That is why each and every day we try to overcome these challenges and to make sure that everything is fine. I would like to reiterate that there could be different challenges, not very pleasant ones. That is why we really need to be stand ready. Thank you. So today with us we had Andrii Hodyk, First Deputy Head of Lviv Oblast Military Administration, and Yurii Kahitin, Head of the Main Director of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, Lviv Oblast. This is everything. Follow us, and we are one day closer to